Hello, hello. Here's Aage again coming to you from Broadcast Team Alpha. And this is going to be a new one. If you just stumbled onto this video without knowing much, knowing who I am or Broadcast Team Alpha is, then I want to spend about 63 seconds explaining a little bit about it. And after that, we're going to get to the good stuff. See, Nori Love and I, we have done Broadcast Team Alpha for just shy of 5 years, I believe, right now. And we had some phenomenal guests, and we're going to have some phenomenal guests, and some of them are even booked. And you got to stay in touch on that one. And Nori Love also have another show under the umbrella of Broadcast Team Alpha. And that show is called the Quantum Well-Being Show. And that is one that you really need to see. I don't care if you have a sore toe or if you have anything else in your body that you're not totally happy with, you got to see that show on Friday evenings. And you find it on YouTube, and just look it up there. And I also now I'm going to start another show under the umbrella of Broadcast Team Alpha. It's going to be called Paranormal World. And that's going to mostly deal with the paranormal. And, paranormal by definition is almost normal. So now the almost normal is becoming more and more normal and better understood because of quantum mechanics. Quantum mechanics is becoming more and more understood, and it's becoming more commonplace. So people can actually start using those principles in their day-to-day life. And we're going to help you do that. We're going to show you how you can reach into the quantum existence, grab onto something that already exists, bring it back into the physical with you, and so it becomes physical and you can have benefit and enjoy from it. Otherwise, we are going to be talking about flying saucers or anything that is in the sky that cannot be explained. It's not necessarily saucers. The German flying discs, we're going to talk about Project Bluebeam, the fake alien invasion. I'm going to do a show on that very shortly. That'll explain what the government have in mind for you. I'm also going to talk about the secret space program and also astro travel. And we're going to go just about anywhere. And there are hidden and banned medical cures that can be explained on the basis of double-blind medical studies published in the medical journals. It cannot be argued with. It's just that it's covered up because there's no money in it. And since I started out mentioning the German flying saucers, so the German flying discs, I might as well talk a little bit about that, because it is something that, well, it's been around for 80 years or more. Back in Norway, when I grew up on the farm back in Norway, we had two people come as workers on the farm. They had been in a concentration camp in Germany. Evidently, they did something the Germans didn't like, so they took them to Germany. And I forget the name of the concentration, Belsen something, and I'll think of it. And they said that they saw these strange airplanes flying around. It had no wings on it. There was no motors in it. It was quiet. You couldn't hear them when they were round. And they had stories about that. And that coincided with research that I did later on, when I found that Nazi Germany, they had their own Roswell in 1936. There was a big disc that crashed in Bavaria. And the Germans, they tried to get into it, couldn't get into it. They spent quite a bit of time getting into it because they used explosives and drills and anything they could think of. They could not penetrate the hole until they finally found a spot they could touch and the side opened up. That was that simple. So they did get into it and they found the pilots and they were able to take it to one of their underground bases at the time. There was underground bases back then too in 1936. Not as much as it is now, but there's some of them still. And they back engineered that. And that became what was called the German flying discs called the Haunebus. They had many flying discs before that, and the Obermann, and there were many others, but some of them had even jet engines in it. But I have the specs that was given to me by Colonel Wendell Stevens in Tucson, Arizona. He's just living, he lived right up the road from me a little ways. I interviewed him 2 or 3 times on my TV show in Tucson, and we had some private conversations that was very interesting. He was probably the one in the world that was the foremost experts on the German flying discs. He had pictures, he had German writing, he had all kinds of stuff. And he gave me the specs on one. And on one of them, I have a flight test results on actually it was on a computer that crashed on me, so I don't have access to it right now, but it explained that one of these discs, and I don't know which one it was the Haunebu 1 or the Haunebu 2, they had pretty much the same capabilities, but they could travel from the surface straight up against gravity to 60,000 feet of altitude in 3 minutes. Now that's fast. And they could travel horizontally much faster. Now I'm going to read the specs because this is something that is hardly ever talked about. The specs on the Nazi. This is the Haunebu. I have that for Haunebu 1, 2, and 3, and the 4. But I'm going to read the Haunebu 2 and one of the others. The Haunebu 2 was 26 meters across. That is about 76 feet for you Americans. It was called the V7. The drive of the engine was the Thule Taconator 7C. The steering was done by magnetic directional impulse, and it also had a gyroscope in it to keep it level. The hull was double with a cooling liquid in it. And the speed, it could go to 6,000 kilometers an hour, between 6,000 and 21,000 kilometers per hour. That is 13,000 miles an hour. The hull was made out of a metal that they developed that they called the Victalian metal. It had a crew of 9 people. The armament on it, because remember, this was created for military purposes. It had 6 cannons and a Pristron tube that was also called the Motorstoppel, or the motor stopper. Simple. And I'll tell you a little story on that motorstoppel, just a little bit. There were also the test flights on it was successful, contrary to the test flights on the Houndaboo 1, which kept crashing on it because it was unstable. And after they crashed a few of them, they couldn't find any pilots to fly it anymore. So they scrapped that one, rebuilt it, made it better with more stability in it. And that became the Houndaboo 2. This Tristron 2, or the motorstoppel, that is something that they used one time in the war towards the end of World War II. This is a story that Colonel Wendell Stevens told me personally. And he said that they had, the Allied forces had one night when there were 800 bombers that left England going in over Germany and bombing specific targets. And the Germans, they used the Houndaboo 2. They flew behind the fleet and they attacked them from the back and aimed the Tristron tube at a specific airplane. And what this Tristron tube was a directional EM pulse. So when they fired the EM pulse at the airplane, it fried all the electronics in the airplane. There went the radios out. They couldn't tell anybody that they were in trouble. The engines quit because that's all electronic spark plugs and stuff. So that didn't work anymore. It could even start some fires. And down they went and crashed. In one night, the Allied forces lost over a third of the fleet. And that's when the high command decided the Germans have a weapon we do not understand. We have no defense against it. If we continue this way, we will lose the war. We need a ground invasion. And that's when the Normandy invasion was made necessary. It was thrown together really fast, botched really bad, because way too many people died because of poor planning. They attacked Germany in the worst spot that they could possibly find, because all the armament up in the hillsides where they landed. But that's a story. Maybe there was a plan behind that. But that was the Houndaboo 2. Let me talk a little bit about the Houndaboo 3. That was 71 meters across, huge, 232 feet across diameter. That also had a tachinator. That's a hard one to say. Tachinator's 7th C plus. What that was is that it was a tube that went from the bottom of the ship to the very top. And there were 2 cylinders that was rotating inside of it in opposite directions. And it was filled with mercury, red mercury. What people don't know is that, first of all, mercury is, when it spins, it becomes electric. And that created a electromagnetic field, a bubble around the aircraft. And everything inside that aircraft became weightless. That's why they also were able to take the gun turret of a tank, take it from the tank, move it underneath the ship, turn it upside down, and bolt it to the bottom of the craft. So they used also a gun turret from a tank underneath the craft. Anyway, I'm going to read the rest of the specs here. For the steering, it had magnetic field directional impulse, but they had no gyro now. They took the gyro out because they found a way to stabilize the aircraft electronically. And the speed was anything from 7 to 40,000 kilometers an hour. Now, that is about 25,000 miles per hour. The hull was double again with cooling inside of it with the same metal, the Victorian metal. And there was a crew of 32 people. They also had a system for evacuation from it. There were pods underneath that they could crawl into the pods and then evacuate the craft in case it got in trouble. But it also was used for evacuation to base 211 from Germany to Antarctica to base 211, which was a huge cavern they found inside the mountain that was cool, and they established, which is now a breakaway society right there. And according to Colonel Wendell Stevens, there were 19 known test flights of the Haunebu 3 with no crashes. This was amazing craft that the Germans created. And the Allied forces had no clue. They were not able to get their spies inside of the underground bases, and they didn't know anything about it. Or if they knew, they didn't know what or how to deal with. Now, there is also another one that the Germans did. There is some controversy around this one. Some say they never actually built it, but they found the drawings and the papers on it. And they, in some of those papers, it says, according to Colonel Wendell Stevens, that yes, they built it. And that's the Haunebu 4. It was 120 meters across. That's kind of football size type of thing. 393 feet across. One of those, according to, there were notes that were found. According to those, one of those was sent from Earth to Mars. These were interplanetary ships. And because of the drive that they had in it, they created a bubble around the craft so that they were not worried about the radiation belt, the Van Allen belt. That didn't bother them at all. They could just travel. And if you were doing something like to 25,000 miles an hour, you can get to Mars in fairly reasonable time. And and also they changed something in the Haunebu 4. They had the red mercury as the fluid inside the Thule engine in the Haunebu 2 and 3. But here they changed the fluid to D2O. That's deuterium. D2O is deuterium, which is radioactive water, because they get more energy out of the radioactive part than they got out of the mercury. So they used that. And that became the detriment. First of all, there is records of people, the German soldiers that was working on it, they became sick. And there's a record of about 8 or 9 of them that died from it. They were working on this new system of drive craft, but also the metal in the craft where they used the D2O as fuel, the metal became brittle. So when they sent that ship to Mars, there is a record of having been sent, but they lost contact and no one knows what happened to it. So we can only wonder, maybe they made it there and landed, crash landed or something, and they still might be there because it's breathable on Mars. NASA is lying to you. You see pictures now of blue skies. The only way you can have blue skies is because of oxygen and moisture. So anyway, we don't know what happened to the Honeybee 4. But the other Honeybee 4, they indicate that there was 2 of them built. And that other one was used to evacuate valuable material from Germany to Antarctica to base 211. And they were going back and forth already 1942, they start moving out. They built the base already before 1940. But they didn't really have it perfected so it could sustain itself before probably around 1942. Because they used what we call free energy. The Germans had it. They had it right in the Honeybees. That created free energy. And we say free, and we do that with tongue in cheek because it costs a little bit to build the equipment. But once you have the equipment, then the energy is free. So also, there was some other drawings that were found in the German papers, and that was of a ship called Andromeda. That was a cigar-shaped space station with pods in it that could fit 4 Honeybee 2s in each pod. And it was quite long. It was longer than a football field. And we don't know if they actually built that. The papers do not indicate that there was one built, but there was one on the drawing board. And I kind of think that if they had it on the drawing board, they've already started doing something. So whether they built it so it was finished or not, I kind of doubt, because this was towards the end of the war and things were very hectic in Germany. They probably concentrated more on things that could help them in the moment. And there is much more to the flying discs of the Nazis, and I'm going to be covering that in some of the upcoming shows. So wait for it, and that's why you need to come back and watch it. Another thing that I'm going to talk about quite extensively when we get into the future shows is Solar Warden. Think of it. What is a warden? It is one that is the head of a prison. That's called the warden. Solar Warden is the secret space program in our region to keep us in jail. We should not be allowed, unless we have their permission, we're not allowed to leave this area. And you see, now we have a space force. Well, maybe we had that for a while, because Several years ago, I think about 4 or 5 years ago at least, the US Senator Mike Gravel, he was on the Armed Services Committee in the financing end of it, and he made this statement right on camera. We have a space force. It is in existence. It is there. End quote. So if it was there 5, 7 years ago, why did we start a new space force? Chances are we did that so that later on we said, yeah, we told you we had a space force, but they didn't tell us when. This space fleet is what Gary McKinnon over in England found when he hacked into NASA's computer. He was looking for free energy and UFO information, and he found, yeah, there is several ships. One of them is USS LeMay. Another one is USS Hillencutter. And he found about 30 names on a list that was marked non-terrestrial officers. He found logs of ship-to-ship transfers of merchandise and cargo. Sounds quite far out there, huh? Well, no, it isn't. Because we have had this for a long time. Think of it, there was the head of the Lockheed Skunk Works, Ben Rich. He made the statement one time that, and I quote, in fact, I'm going to read this too. We already have the means to travel among the stars and take ET home. But these technologies are locked up in black projects, and it will take an act of God to ever get them out to benefit humanity. Anything you can imagine, we already know how to do. He said that in 1978. You run the numbers, figure out how long that was ago. 42 years. So yeah, we've had technologies you won't believe, but they have been kept from us. So I think that we need to rethink our society. We need to rethink what we think is possible, because just about anything is possible. See, these people, they have worked with quantum mechanical principles for decades. We're just now starting to do it. Actually, we haven't even started yet, hardly. We have quantum computers. That's it. But the power of the mind is what's going to open up and unfolding the understanding of quantum mechanics. So we can do things with the mind, we can levitate, we can create out of seemingly nothing, like Tori and I and our crew do on our mastermind on Sundays. You got to check that out. I'll mention it to you in just a little bit. I know it gets a little hairy out there. There's one more thing I want to talk about a little bit, because it is so relevant and important right now. A good friend of mine in Tucson, John D'Souza, he's a retired FBI agent. He is talking about something that I think we all should know about, and that is Project Blue Beam. That is actually a government program. Yes, government program where it says in their own papers that they are going to do a fake alien invasion where you wake up one day and see thousands of flying discs in the sky. And it all looks like an invasion. See, this comes out of, it's been going on since the late 60s, early 70s. They concocted this program of the fake alien invasion. And that parlayed into Agenda 21, now Agenda 2030. And the purpose of it all is to scare the daylight out of people, so they're going to run to the government and says, please save us. And you betcha, they'll save you. They'll take all your rights away, basically put you in a small place where you can only travel 15 miles to one end to the other one, and beyond that you have to have government permission to go and travel and to see your aunt in Florida. I'm not joking. It's in their papers. They advertise it. This is the future they want for you. Lock you in. You can't travel beyond 15. You're going to be on government payroll. If you do something they don't like, they'll cut you off. It's in their papers. Go do your research on this one. Yeah. And a few of those ships in between the holographic flying discs that show up that are fake, there's going to be some real ones. And they will be shooting at something to create fear among the people, maybe blowing up cities and doing whatever they can to get the people to be scared enough to run to the government. But I saw something different a few years back. Maybe there will be two UFO flaps. The first one, they're not our friends. The second one could be our friends because they come and clean up. So we'll see how that works. But the first one, when you see it, if you see it, it's going to be the fake one. And I wrote down a note here that I just want to tell you about, and that is the administrator of NASA, Charles Bolden. He was in an interview. He said, right in the interview, he said, before the year 2025, there will be an alien invasion. How about that? When the NASA board found out about that, they fired him immediately. But then they start thinking about it, and they realize that if he's out there, no wages anymore, he's got nothing to lose, he may say things that we don't like. So they hired him back and put him on permanent sick leave. So as far as I know, that's where he still is. On permanent sick leave, you get full wages and they can control you. Because what he's talking about is that there is a document on the FBI website. It's called the smoking gun document. You can go check it out. I'm going to tell you where to find it. You go to Vault, vault.gov.fbi. That is vault.gov.fbi. Go in under UFO groups. Yes, there is such a thing. And look at document number 6 751. That document is an FBI document where they explain that yes, aliens are real, UFOs are real, we know where they're coming from. Most of them are interdimensionals. They come from other realities into our, fly around, do what they want to do, and then they leave and go back to their reality. That's what it says in the FBI document, because they have had contact with them. Read the document. So, one more thing on the Project Bluebeam. You know, Christians and religious people, they are probably going to be the last ones to be messed with or be afraid, because they have a savior. So they say aliens are not going to, we're not going to mess with them. We're just going to stay with our religion. But you see, they have you figured out too. The people that run Project Bluebeam, they are going to know your hotspot, which is Muhammad or Jesus, Buddha. You take your pick, depends on where you are. If you are in the Western world, you are going to see Jesus in the sky. He's going to be there. We already seen holograms of him, but there's pictures out there now showing him up there. He's going to be a little bigger this time. And then there's this technology that was, I think it was patented in the United States in 1978. That's the earliest one. There have been newer versions of it. It's called voice-to-skull technology. That is when they bombard you with microwave and they key voice in on the modulate voice in on the microwave. So when it hits your skull, you hear the voice. So Jesus in the sky is going to be talking to you. I don't know what he's going to say, but it's going to be something like, probably, I am Jesus, your God. Do as your government tell you so they can protect you. And the Christians hearing that, Jesus is talking to me. I'm going to go and get the government to protect me. So they'll take all your rights away, put you in that 15-mile square little city, and basically lock you up and give you a menial government wage so you can barely buy food and have a roof over your head. They'll save you, all right. So, I guess they have plans for us. But we'll cover some good things too. The mind is a wondrous place, and there are no limits to what can be done with it. I'm going to this is something that Nori Love and myself and the mastermind group are doing on Sundays. We actually are kind of creating things out of seemingly nothing. Healings of people that have pain for 35 years, and it goes away in 24 hours after we do a mind melt and concentrate on the pain going away. Creating rain out of basically clear skies. No, it wasn't clear sky. There were some clouds, but not that much. But in an hour and a half, we had howling rain to put out the forest fires we wanted to get rid of. These things can be done. Let me read something to you. In 1981, there was a man named Morris Goodman. He was in a plane crash. Doctors did not expect him to live very long. He broke his back above the chest, severed the spinal cord, punctured his diaphragm, and could not breathe without a ventilator. He could not move any part of his body below his shoulders. He understood the power of the mind and visualization. In a short time, he regenerated the diaphragm so he could breathe on his own again. In a few months, he regrew his spinal cord and spine so he could walk again. Doctors were dumbfounded. They have never seen anything like this before. That is what the mind can do. I pointed to your brain and your heart. The mind feeds your brain through the heart for those kinds of abilities. This is what we teach you how to do on the mastermind. You should come and send us an email to themastermindconnection@gmail.com. themastermindconnection@gmail.com. I know if you were not foresighted enough to have a pen and a piece of paper here, you may have to rerun the video. See, nobody else, hardly anybody teaches how to do this. Greg Braden does, Joe Dispenza does, Bruce Lipton does, Sadhguru does to a certain degree. But there is a method to do this. Prayers, the prayers that the church teach you is basically worthless. That's why they don't work mostly. Because it's not the words that is important. It is the feeling and the mental images that you create in connection with the words that the universal mind are able to listen to and react to and come back and help you from. It will help you create in the physical. See, there is a spiritual language. That spiritual language is not one of words. It is a language of emotion, intention, gratitude for already having what you're asking for. You're loving it, willing to share and visualize other people enjoying it with you. Otherwise, it would be kind of selfish, wouldn't it? And loving it into existence. That's the spiritual language. Once you use that language, the universal mind or the quantum intelligence, or God, if you like, is listening. They react to emotion, intention, gratitude, and love. That universal mind reacts to that and say, wait a minute, I love that. I'm going to help you. Of course, I'm playing on words there, but that's more like the result. And I'll also, we're going to talk on this show in the future weeks to come. We're going to talk about a lot of other paranormal things. I will also teach you a little bit about astral travel. Maybe what it is, how it works, what to do, where you can go, and what you can see out there. Who can you meet? Is it safe? Or should you actually do that? Maybe not. Or maybe if your curiosity is big enough, or if you have a reason to go out there, maybe you should. You also, I'm going to talk about what is the universe and how can we benefit from just simply knowing. We'll also talk about what quantum mechanics are telling us that we are, not who, but what we are. These are the most important questions because astral travel is not that hard to do. A lot of people, millions of people have had out-of-body experiences. That means when you suddenly find yourself outside of your body, you're looking back at yourself and you see, wow, that's me laying in the bed there. What am I doing out here? And then you start exploring, walking into another room, and you find out that, oh, wait a minute, I didn't walk, I just floated in there. And then you go outside and you head to the door and you try to touch the doorknob and it don't work, so you walk right through the door. You find yourself outside. It's a little different color to it, but now you're really interested in it. You start traveling down the streets, going up high, looking around in your neighborhood, or going really high up. You can see Earth below you. And yeah, it's curved. Sorry, flat earthers. Ask any astral traveler and they'll tell you. But these are just some of the things that you can do. Who can you meet out there? There are entities outside of the physical in that astral existence. You meet them. I would advise in the beginning, before you really know what you're doing, leave them alone because they're there, they have not totally gone home yet. And they're frustrated often. They are inquisitive. They want to ask questions and they want to know, why am I here? What's going on? Because that first place you go is very often where ghosts are trapped. Souls are trapped there because they don't know anything different. Often they were atheists. They had no spiritual clue whatsoever. So they end up there and they don't know what to do. There's a saying, and it goes like, no one dies alone. That's basically true. Usually somebody come and get you and tell you, hey, Joe, you graduated now, you dropped your body, you graduated, let's go home. So you go with them. But there are times when there are nobody there. Like unscheduled accidents, and yes, they do happen. Those things happen, and those people can be caught there, and nobody at the spiritual side know they are even physically dead. So you can actually also help some of those if you know how to go about that. And if you want me to, I can talk about that later on in the show. You can help them to go home. Get out of limbo, so to speak. This can get very interesting and very rewarding. But there is also, I lumped them together. There are two different ways. I lumped them together and called it astral travel, which it may not be. The astral vehicle of your body is something that is physically attached to the body. It's around you. It stands out a little bit outside, maybe, or just around you. If the astral vehicle leaves the physical body, it's attached still to the physical body through a very thin, silvery cord connection. when you get out there, then whatever you experience, you have to be conscious about. You consciously feed the information you see out there back through the cord to the brain so it can get recorded as memory. Otherwise, you may not be able to remember what you saw and experienced. Nobody hardly talk about this either. But there's another way to travel out of your body, and that is consciousness or spirit or soul travel. There's different names for it. When your consciousness leave, there is no limitations to distance. You could go to the moon, you can go to Mars, to Andromeda, to Sirius 2 and visit the black race of people there. You can do these things. And don't worry about finding your way home. There's a safety valve in the universe. All you have to do is to think yourself back home, and bingo, you're home. Well, it's a little shorter than just a snap of a finger, but you will get back. So, and we're going to cover an awful lot more in this new show. I'm going to do on Thursdays at 5 o'clock in the afternoon, Pacific time, USA, 8 o'clock in the evening, East Coast time. And you have to figure out the different time zones around the world, because we have viewers in basically all continents except for Antarctica. Or, well, I don't know. There may be somebody. I know there's a lot of people down there in the summer. And Broadcast Team Alpha is transmitting on 19 different platforms now. So we're getting out there. You'll find us a lot of different places. But if you find us on one of the other platforms, come to Broadcast Team Alpha YouTube, because we are monitoring that in a live show. And you can see the excitement in the chat room. You can participate in the chat room. Type in your questions and we may be able to answer your questions so you can participate in the show. Well, I think what I want you to do when you're watching us on YouTube, subscribe and click the bell so you get an idea when the next shows are coming up. And then send us an email to themastermindconnection@gmail.com. And I will send you some information on the mastermind so you can come and visit, observe and participate, and you can ask questions, or you probably have some brilliant ideas that we want to hear, because it is not just Nori and me teaching and doing this. No, I am learning a whole bunch from the people in the group. It's a two-way flow of information. And then we have some videos every so often on Mondays and Wednesdays where we run on maybe a 15 or 10 to 20 minute video. And then we go into a deep discussion about the video. And these are videos that you really need to know about. So anyway, I've been talking here for about an hour. I've been planning for only 30 minutes, but I got on the roll, so here I am. And I think that it's going to be an interesting show, because I'm going to have some good guests. We are going to delve into the paranormal side of life. of the universe, of the mind. And whatever is important, I want to hear from you what you like to hear about, what you like to see. And I think that's going to be a lot of fun. So until then, see you in the next video.